sometimes I'll get asked questions, it's like, hey, like, what do I have to do to get from gold to plat? And I'm like, I have no idea. I don't know what happens in lower ratings because I just don't play there.
The way you said that obviously sounds funny because it's like, I can't relate to you plebs down there.
I don't play there. I don't know what you think.
To the common man. But
I thought of it more along like, I don't smurf. I play where I'm supposed to be playing.
Hello and welcome back to The Dive, driven by IKEA, Season 10, Episode 15. This is the post-Jynxzi tournament episode, baby. Honestly, I actually hadn't laughed this hard about a league clip in a long time. But I know you all saw the
Marlin Press R.
You all saw this Marlin Press R clip. It is so hilarious. We will put a link to it, honestly, in the description here of the dive video. But I think this is one of the best things to come out of the tournament. The tournament was amazingly successful overall. I actually was, kind of watching Jynxzi's stream when he had hit 400K. And then I heard afterwards around 400K, just individual for him was like his peak. That was kind of during the peak. It was when he was still in the tournament playing. But while he was at 400K, there was also like Tyler won with 70, 80.
I saw
and
about 800,000 total.
Everybody is streaming. Obviously, Jynxzi did an amazing job getting almost all these biggest streamers on the whole platform. So it was just like everybody get in here moment. But back to the specific clip, you should check out this Marlin one because Double Lift is on his team, and Double Lift's voice, the tone in his voice. I didn't even watch the whole game, but I watched this clip, and you can tell the whole game's been leading up to this because he's like, "All right, Marlin, this is the moment. When they're all grouped up, hit R," and he's like, "Please, Marlin, hit R." And it's Marlin's screen, and he's clearly playing WSD because he's using the keyboard, but he's not casting any spells. And Malphite is just walking around the turret, and he's like, "I'm standing on the turret." I love how locked in he is too. You see his player's cam, and he's super intense, and he's casting no spells, walking around his turret. And then he's like, "Please press R." He's like, I did. and then you see it, and then Buff was like, "Please."
No, I think he got confused because when they told him to ulti, he's like, "I did." Yeah. And then finally he was like, "Press R."
And he looks down at his keyboard. R. Yeah, he looks down at his keyboard.
Ult in place.
And you see the indicator too, the spell indicator right over where Malphite is, and then it hits it. It is so perfect.
It is so funny. I mean, it's a great reminder of how much stuff we take for granted in League, right? When new players, especially people who I assume he's not experienced playing a lot of games, but even watching some of the Jynxzi clips, someone who is like him, who obviously is a gamer and is really experienced, but coming over to League, and there's so many things for all of us who have played the game for a decade plus, and all of this stuff that is just taken for granted as assumed knowledge, it all takes so much time to learn, and it is cool to see new players and kind of relive those early days of first times I played MOBAs. Because when I first started playing League, even I had played Dota and Dota 2 and Han and all this stuff, so it wasn't really a true first time experience. But I can remember back to I still remember my first ever game of playing a MOBA, and I was playing original Dota, and I was playing with a bunch of people that were my WoW guild, and one of the people from my guild got so mad playing with me that he almost quit the guild and stuff, because I was just you just don't know, right? We go to lane, okay, we're stronger than the 2v2 or whatever, so I'm just running past the minions, hitting them, and I just die to the minions and stuff, and it's just, I don't know, it's kind of brings me back to those days, and it was really fun to watch. And I feel like it also was a really cool moment just for NA League in general, having all these huge streamers, both endemic and non-endemic streamers, people who aren't normally part of the League scene coming in and getting to have a super fun time playing League. And it kind of shows you the joy of playing the game. And I thought they had some really good rules, because when I first saw that they were gonna have challenger players, and even when I heard it was gonna be support, I was like, oh god, they're just gonna play brand support and stuff like this and just 1v9 the game. But they're basically only allowed to play enchanters and supportive stuff, and so I thought it made it really, really fun. And lots of hilarious clips are out there. The Marlin Press R one is classic.
that's the best.
But there was ones there, I saw a whole bunch of him trying to attack his own tower and pressing E on his tower and slamming, and then another one where it's level 1 and Renekton starts fighting him and he gets confused which way to run, so he runs into the enemy tower to try to run away and just dies. It was really fun to watch. So definitely cool to see that going on.
Yeah, I mean, the game is It's pretty complicated. One thing I really liked about the tournament was just seeing people who I never thought of as League players. Just like really big online celebrity people's like Moist Critical. I think Mr. Beast was playing in it.
Yeah. And he was like a plat peak or something like that.
Yeah.
I saw.
Yeah. I remember back when I was on 100 Thieves, I ended up in like a custom game with him and some of his friends, and he was like actually really good at Pike. I was super surprised. But I don't know if he's kept up with it. And then there was like XQC was also doing really well. So it was just cool to me that even if these people don't like currently play League, or a lot of people play it off and on, which is totally fine, right? There's like a lot of things you can spend your time on. So it was just cool to see everybody come together, like new players, old players, returning players, all that stuff. Yeah, I mean, it was an awesome event. I was super stoked watching it. I couldn't catch all of it, all the games or everything, but I did tune in when I could, and it's just fun.
Yeah. They also gave away a full Ink Shadow Master Yi skin. What that when I clicked on, I was like, oh my god, he's got 400K viewers. I was like, I'm check it out and stuff. And then I was like, oh my god, this drop is crazy good. So I got my Ink Shadow Master Yi.
There you go, legendary skin.
Thank you, Riot. That was pretty sick promotion, and they've talked about it a lot. And Jynxzi himself was very complimentary of how Riot like jumped in and fully supported this. And we talked about it when Jynxzi first started his League of Legends journey, but a lot of the other clips, like it's of course it's always funny to laugh at the hilarious misplays and stuff, but some of the heartwarming ones, like when Jynxzi first started, and Dantes has been his coaching and duo on with him and all that. But yeah, when he got his first kill against the bot, he was popping off, and you could you feel it. The clip that they have where Dantes is like coaching him, and I think he is playing Master Yi, and he goes and he gets to kill the Nexus, and he has a bunch of kills in this game too, and he's just like you can tell, he feels that real dopamine hit of winning a league game and like carrying it and like killing the Nexus yourself, like being the one to run down. Like it was kind of a base race.
Watching him get addicted in real time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, he's gonna be chasing that feeling forever.
Yeah, I was like, dang, all these different moments that you can go through.
I've had so much fun with friends over the years when I can get new friends coming over to play for the first time, or a number of times over the years, like some of my old WoW friends who are streamers would like try out League for the first time, and it's really fun watching people learn and kind of like go through all those experiences. And there was a number of posts, including one from this guy Raymond on the League subreddit, just talking about how this was his first kind of exposure to League and getting into it. So it's just cool to see like a lot of new players, maybe coming from this, and hopefully some new LCS fans coming in off the back of it as well. Do you guys have any like hot tips for brand new players, maybe a champion to recommend or something you think they should try out to try to, kind of get into it a bit?
Ooh, I mean, it's so tough trying to remember, because when I learned the game, it's not the modern League, right? It was a long time ago. I guess I actually did teach one of my friends who I also knew throughout how to play recently, and what I found with everyone learning League is like, people don't want to start with the easy champions, because that's kind of the obvious advice. It's like, all right, dude, start with something simple like Nasus, Malphite, Smolder, like mentioned here is a really good one. I think that is the best thing to do for a new player, but ultimately, I think people are just going to play who they think looks cool, and like you kind of gotta vibe with the character. There's so many different kind of characters in League. There's going to be somebody that you think looks cool or their story really resonates with you, and you should just play it. And my friend, I think he started out like trying to play Katarina, and I'm like, you're going to feed every game. I don't recommend it. And he's like, I don't care. I'm just going to keep doing it. I'm like, you know what?
Respect.
All good. Then do that. And so I would say just, try out stuff, and you're going to lose a lot of games, and just take it one step at a time. Try to learn the fundamentals, like last hitting minions gets you gold. Game's all about just like getting a lot of gold and experience, getting stronger, and everything else will just kind of happen naturally. When you just take it one step at a time.
My number one tip, the first thing I was going to say was play with some friends. That if you can, whether they play League or not either, it's also really fun just to start with a whole bunch of friends that have never played League, and you can all kind of be in the same boat. Or if you have someone that can coach and help everybody, either way, the game is so much more fun if you can be like in Discord with a friend. for at least even part of the journey. You know, you can bond over flaming the other teammates instead that way, right? or you could you know, hype each other up is some of the best you know, parts of the game. So I definitely say that. In Raymond's specific case, this guy you're talking about that left the question on the subreddit, you know, he says he's coming with 700 hours on Deadlock. And I'm like, you are already way above a lot of the people we even saw in this Jynxzi tournament. Because Deadlock has a lot of the mechanics. Obviously, it's a shooter game, and so it's a bit different. But like, you have to CS, you have to even deny in Deadlock.
Yeah.
And so I feel like you're gonna have a much easier time than most people.
Yeah.
As far as like specific roles or champions, I definitely agree with Meteos of just like whatever looks or feels the best to you. Like I had already played this game for over 10 years, and then I became a Volibear one trick. And just because that particular iteration of Volibear felt really cool to play, aligned with like how I wanted to play the game, and you know, invade and get very aggressive and force tower dives and stuff. And then I also like the theme, and like when those things line up, you just want to queue up the same character over and over, and it just like feels really comforting and stuff too. So I would say don't shy away at all from becoming a one trick, even though, you know, maybe like older League players would be like, you know, they look down on it sometimes. I'd say definitely play into that, especially when you are first starting out.
Yeah. For me, I think it just all depends on your goals, right? If you're some people come over and they're really competitive and they want to climb fast, right? Like I hit Diamond my first season playing League, and like I wanted to like climb fast. And one of the things that one of my friends who at the time recommended to me was just play, just one trick, one champion. Like limit the variables so you can learn some of the matchups on champions.
Maybe two if it gets banned.
Sure, you know, because there's like 170 champions. It is so overwhelming learning not only what all the champions do, but when the different champions are strong, and then you take into consideration the different matchups and interactions, and then you have to think about items now too. And I beat this guy last time, but now he has this item, so do I still beat him? You know, like there's so much going on that if you care about just like performing well fast, and that's more your goal, and you're kind of a competitive gamer, then limiting variables I think makes it way easier. For me, I was playing a ton of Annie support when I came in, which was really meta at the time, and it was like, this is simple. I can focus on just like understanding what people are doing and what my role is in the game without having like, you know, super complex mechanics and stuff. And I had a lot of fun doing that. I was playing a lot of Annie, and then I was also playing like a Moo jungle, and I was just like, I'm gonna have like team fight ultimates, and I'm gonna like generally understand what my goal is in team fights, you know, and that worked pretty well for me. And I think something a lot of new players always struggle with too is focusing on farm versus fighting, because like getting gold is so important in League. And almost everyone I know who is like actually fresh to the game always is fighting way more and focusing on getting minions and jungle camps and stuff way less. So a lot of times you can be pretty successful just by, you know, focusing on your income, so to speak, and just keeping all your camps farmed.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that's probably one of the things that separates the elos in League, because sometimes I'll get asked questions, you know, it's like, hey, like, what do I have to do to get from gold to plat? And I'm like, I have no idea. I don't know what happens in lower ratings because I just don't play there. But I do know in general, it's just the amount of money you can get. Like if you're somebody who can consistently get more gold than everyone else in the game, you're probably just gonna win.
Do you ever see the way you said that obviously sounds funny, because it's like, yeah, I can't relate to you plebs down there.
I don't play there. I don't know what you think.
To the common man. But
I thought of it more along like, I don't smurf. I play where I'm supposed to be playing.
No, of course. I mean, I know you had no bad intent. It was just funny. But do you guys ever see those posts where you're talking about getting gold, and it's like average CS by a rank and whatnot, and for like every role, it's basically just a straight line up. Like when you're looking at like ADCs and stuff, and it is pretty much exactly in order from iron to bronze to silver to gold to plat to emerald to diamond. The average CS just goes up. There is a reason, because you are just automatically going to be stronger on average the more gold you have. And in a lot of close fights, getting that extra early longsword from farming a bit better or whatever can make the difference. Then you get the kill gold, and now you're 2 longswords up, and now you win the next fight easily. And so it is always like it's a oversimplification a little bit, but gold matters so much.
It certainly does.
But yeah, that was awesome. Hopefully we'll get more tournaments like that.
Speaking of, going from players joining and new players to current players and pros talking about quitting and leaving, we had a banger of an honest interview from eXyu after Dignitas, lost their series and were eliminated from playoffs. This is from Cloud Seki, and I mean, like I said, it's just very honest. The quote itself just goes super hard from the title. I didn't tell anyone outside of the org, but I had considered retirement during the split just because it is so hard to play on this team. To be a good team, you either need to respect each other or like each other, and we had neither of that on this team.
Yeah. Whew. That quote is crazy. I feel like that is one of the craziest quotes, just that last part, that I have ever seen from a pro that is still actively playing on that team, where he just straight up said they don't like or respect each other on Dignitas, period. And, the interview is great. Check it out. It's on Cloud Seki's YouTube. And, I've seen some of it transcribed on Twitter and various places as well. But he talks about how he just was feeling so unmotivated. It felt so soul-sucking to be playing in the dig house, 10 hours a day or whatever. And then it just felt so hard to go home and then still feel motivated to VOD review or to do extra work, right? And even the minimum in League, if you're a League pro, is playing pretty much all day long, right? And it is hard. I talked to some other pros about this as well, and it's when you are on a bottom team, it is really tough because you go into scrim every day and you get blasted by everyone, and things aren't always getting better, and it can be really frustrating, and those frustrations can kind of build, and then there's interpersonal issues that are coming from that, because when you're losing, it's natural for people to try to assign responsibility and try to figure out whose fault is what and all this sort of stuff. If you're all disagreeing, that's just tough. So I mean, it's a brutal quote, but it is also cool to see someone being that honest about it, because that's real. When you're on a bottom team, it's hard.
Why do I feel like, I can't remember who it was, but I feel like we've heard this kind of thing before about specifically Dignitas with a different roster. I don't know
I
if
think
it's
it was
just
Photon. I think it was Photon after he joined. I believe was talking about the environment.
I think you're right. Yeah,
I think it was at the end of lock-in, right? Because he came in, or maybe it was the end of summer. I can't remember. But he had a very similar interview talking about how he joined, and it was just he was trying to be really positive, but it was just so negative, and things just weren't working.
Yeah, I mean that's tough. I don't know if it's something happening on Dignitas because it's been totally different rosters a lot of the time, or it's just the nature of being a bottom placing team, and they happen to have not done too well in recent years. So, I mean, I feel for him. I've been on, some teams that didn't do too great, and it's super true with if you're on a team where sometimes, you didn't choose your teammates, right? It's everyone just kind of got drafted onto this team. And so you might totally have different ways of seeing the game as your teammates. And ideally, when you're on a team, you can find ways to work together, but it is only human, and you are around these people so many hours a day. So, if there's little things about each other that sort of rub you the wrong way, you just it's hard to get away from it. And so that frustration can build, like you were saying. You lose all your scrims, you lose all your LCS matches. Hopefully they're not on social media too much, but you're just getting flamed everywhere. It's super, super rough. So I totally get how he's feeling. I don't know what more there is to say about it, because it's just it sucks. It sucks hard. In the same way that the teams who give everything to the game and you win, it's kind of the flip side of that. Everyone out there is trying really hard, but there's always going to be a last place team. So
here's
it sucks.
Here's the Photon quote. I found it. So this was an interview from 9 months ago, and the excerpt. This was a Nayman or NAMN interview. It says, "When I first came here, I saw that the team mood was really depressed. They were so toxic. I think I try to be positive, but individually and as people, I don't think these 5 players and coaches are a good fit together."
And that was a completely different roster.
Yeah, I can't remember what all had changed from them, but quite a bit.
That was Shaden and...
Yeah. And that's kind of why it's becoming a bigger topic of conversation, where people are how does this happen every year on Dig? What is it about this roster, this org that is causing, all these issues? And I think, it's it's kind of tough to answer. There is a very long AMA that Jonathan from Dignitas did with Raz hosting, and eXyu was involved in that as well. And it's like a 3-hour thing that you guys can go check out and get some answers. I haven't watched the full 3-hour thing, but I did talk to Raz about it, and they do go over a lot of this and kind of give some more context on some things and kind of give some opinions and talk through some stuff and some of the struggles that they had in Scrims. You know, Raz was talking about his takeaway was that a lot of their issues came from kind of like their Scrim culture, and in reviews how, you know, basically they couldn't get on the same page. It's like you're having, you know, scrims that go bad and you're having these long review sessions, and then people disagree, and you can never really get to a place where people are like aligned on what the takeaway is, right? So it never feels like there's that resolution. At least that's kind of like what I took from Raz telling me about it. So it's tough, right? And that is why it cannot be overstated how the importance of friendship and players actually getting along. It makes such a big difference in League, right? And I think people always are going to reference the old C9 roster as like, you know, from the outside, it always looked like such good vibes. Everyone's having fun. And it's like a lot easier when you like the people you're working with to be able to kind of like work through, I think, some difficulties.
Yeah, definitely. That's something that I feel like Sneaky always got or deserved a lot of credit for that, because pretty much everyone he played with, I don't know if there's ever been a teammate he's played with who like would have a bad review of him, because he is just good with vibes. And it's something I've talked to him about, because, you know, I try, but I'm not always like the, you know,
ray of sunshine.
Yes. You know, sometimes if I feel like somebody's trolling what they're doing in game, I'll just be pretty direct about it, and that can cause some conflict. But Sneaky was always like, you know, just try to find like non-gaming related things, like non-league related things to get along with people. And so that's something I started doing. It's like, even if, you know, scrims are going terrible, LCS games are going terrible, it's like, what if you just do something that's not League for a bit? Just like you know, it's not have to be like some really like cliche team building exercise, but just something like play some random like friend slot game on Steam together, something like that. I think it's really good, because once you get to see your teammates like as people instead of just like that guy who's losing the LCS games, it can be a lot easier. But obviously, easier said than done, because sometimes it is just super rough when you're in those spots.
And props to Jonathan. I know, like, he's trying. He came in pretty fresh as the GM, and he was talking about, we're, you know, getting them to play board games and stuff after scrims at the very least. And so like it is rough, because it just seems like it's been this black hole of negativity for a while. And they're changing stuff up, and they're you know, trying to fix it. But man, losing all series is always going to be rough. Even my advice of just play with your friends, even, you know, when we're playing Flex Q and we lose like three in a row or something, it's like, let's take a break. Vibes are off, you know, type of thing.
Can't end on a loss.
Even if you're queuing with your literal friends, vibes can start to get negative. And so if you're doing it as your job, and people are competing, and you're like looking at each other and trying to give each other feedback and scrutiny, and you're trying to compete at the highest level, and you're sustaining losses, it's you know, tremendously difficult. So definitely a really big big event though, and a very kind of honest moment and an honest quote. I really did enjoy that.
And I do think that the reality is everyone is going to be expecting changes with Dignitas, because this team is doing really, really poorly. But the difficulty, of course, is when people think of your org as, you know, as a bottom team, and when they hear all these quotes about players who are saying the environment is really rough and everyone's not getting along and it's horrible to play there, and, you know, all this sort of stuff, it's going to be hard to recruit good players, right? Like, you know, Jonathan is obviously coming in just this year, and he is trying to change things around, and he worked with Energy, and, you know, was part of their championship run. And I think he's great from all the interactions I've had with him. So, you know, you do have to give them a bit of time, but it does make it way harder, just point blank period. When people have that reputation of your org, it's like people don't want to join, right? People aren't going to want to go there. So that is going to make it more difficult, but I can't believe that Dignitas wouldn't be trying to make changes in between splits. If there's anything they can try, I feel like it's worth mixing it up to try to, experiment and see if you can find new pieces to try to build around, because it feels like this year is already kind of a lost cause. I just don't see a world in which this team bounces back and becomes a top level team, is actually competing to go to Worlds as is. I just can't believe that. So, that is kind of the tough reality, but that is kind of my expectation. And, I feel like, realistically speaking, if I'm the coach, if I'm the GM, I'm looking at potentially trying out new mid laners, new junglers, because I think eXyu and Palafox have struggled. I think FBI and Ignar and Photon, like the whole team is not working. It's not like it's just on mid jungle, but I feel like those are the most clear roles where I feel like they have had worse performances compared to the other people playing their role in the LCS.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it would be insanely shocking to me if they didn't make changes, because this interview eXyu gave, if you make an interview like that, it's like, yeah, I want to quit. Everyone on our team hates each other. And then you're like, let's run it back. That would be wild. So I think it's a safe bet to assume something's going to change. I'm curious what they changed as well. I mean, mid jungle definitely have been struggling. Something that I've always pushed for, even when I was playing, but like when you're mentioning how they have these like really long reviews where no one gets along, it's like, to me, I feel like that's one of the worst things for teams is I always would wish that I could get my team and the team we're scrimming against to agree to like, let's just not review between games. Let's just like play a game and then just play another game afterwards. Like just chain games. And then afterwards, if you really want to, you can sit down and like do a review where you have like, multiple games to look at. And so it's because I think a lot of the time people just get too caught up in very specific things, and then you'll try to systematically change your entire team's approach to avoid this, one-off thing that happened in one game. It's just bad. And, sometimes if you do have like a really terrible game and then people are super disagreeing about it, it's like, you're not always going to come to a resolution, and then you have to play another game after that. And then
where people are pissed.
Yeah, vibes are just down horrible. So that kind of exercise is something that I would always push for. I don't know if teams would do it though, because usually when I bring it up to people, there's like, they think, oh no, like there's so much value in review, but I don't know. I'm on the other side of that. I think some of my best exercises on teams have been like no calm scrims where like nobody says anything at all to each other during the game, and then also just like not over reviewing stuff, because in that case it's like you just get a lot of games in, you get more reps, and then you can actually I feel like you can see patterns easier when you have more info to go off of, and when people aren't worried about calming, they can focus more on the game, look at the map more. Maybe somebody's weaknesses is more apparent if they're just doing their own thing. So that's what I would recommend to teams that are struggling a lot. I think those could be like really good exercises as far as just like getting out of that trap of negativity.
Did you guys see the pros episode? There was like a huge discussion on Scrims and like APA and Inspired. I don't want to say argument, but like kind of went back and forth on like what the right discussion, on like what the right way to do Scrims is, and Jan kind of gave his opinion, because obviously there's a lot of talk about LYON, and just like Inspired teams in general are just like remake kings. Anything goes bad, they want instant remake, and if you want remake, it's like okay, GG, right? And basically, then they won't redo the same lobby, and then they'll just ask you for more games. And Inspired seemed very, very passionate about this, and the way he looks at the game, I find interesting. Like, I don't really agree with his point of view on it, but I do think it's very interesting, and I always love that, like, how opinionated he is and how he has, like, a clear logic for how he wants to play, and that's the way he sees it, and he kind of won't be swayed. But his whole thought was basically that it is better if a game goes like not how it's expected to go, like through his point of view, like if a matchup goes bad when it's supposed to be winning, or when something weird happens, a random invade where a fight goes wrong, or like a dive that shouldn't have happened happens. His point of view was basically you should just instantly remake, and you'll get more practice from just playing out the game in a more normal state than you will playing out in this kind of like weird way. And he was saying, people are obviously going to make the argument of like, well, you don't always get to play in normal states, and like what about when you fall behind on stage? And he was saying, at least to him, it is more obvious what you should do when you are behind versus like it is less clear what to do always, like the best decision when it is more normal state. Because he's like, when you're behind, you basically have to make a funny play, right? Like you are going to like go overstack on a side wave, or you're going to try to like, you know, four-man someone, or you're going to try to do something like that's kind of his take. So I thought that was interesting, but I do feel like it is also unrealistic to think that everyone knows exactly how to play from behind always, and that you won't get into these weird situations, because those weird situations happen all the time on stage.
Also, the degree to how far they are behind, I thought was a big point of the discussion, and part of APA's other side of the argument, where he was like, you were literally down one Krug camp. You know, he asked for a remake after they were trying to practice this level 1 thing, and he asked for a remake after APA was saying, okay, so Blabber, you know, did something basically to mind game him and got a Krug camp lead. And then Inspired was like, well, yes. And then I know from our bot lane matchup, eventually, you know, this is going to happen and they're going to go push in and then they're going to get dove. And it's, you know, he has this whole domino effect in his brain laid out. And so from his point of view, which is something that we have talked about and brought up so many times throughout the history of League of Legends, is it would be very effective if there was a kind of practice tool where you could create a scenario and practice a specific play over and over. And that's basically what Inspired is trying to create with this remake of Scrims. You know, like say, if you wanted to practice a specific tower dive at some point in a game, you know, some time or whatever, you could like set the game to that time where, you know, the minion waves would be right. And, you know, these types of like gold leads would be in place, or these items would be in place. And like, I don't know, maybe you can like save it and then play it out and then go back to the save state or something like that is kind of how it feels like he's looking at it. We don't have that sort of capability for, you know, a practice tool to be able to practice the similar scenario over and over. I'd love to be able to like practice my Baron Smite fights or something like that.
Well, you can like respawn and stuff now and have multiple people in there, so you can do somewhat. Maybe not the full functionality.
It's definitely not what he's looking for, right? He's looking for an entire game state, so it'd have to be a rewind technology. Yeah. And so I do get that, because he is saying you are going to get more information from seeing what I change in relation to what you did. So I want to reset to this point. And so we can both figure out the proper decision tree from either side of like, what is the optimal play of what we should do. I will change what I want. We'll see what happens. You will then gain information on your side also from just seeing what I changed. And then you'll be able to infer what my goal was. Yeah. And that was kind of his argument. I find, at least from, you know, lots of the international tournaments that we've had, there are so many scenarios, obviously from our North American perspective, where we are down and games are not, you know, close or even, and you need to have some, you know, some sorts of strategies or ways to get back after your bot lane has been completely dove or things like that. And I mean, this episode of Pros was one of my favorite, because their discussion just between APA and Inspired and LYON was, you know, very, cool. Very detailed, and went on a while. And they started talking about international tournaments as well. And, you know, Inspired was talking about when he was on FlyQuest, part of the way that they decided they were going to make, you know, these like funny comeback plays versus better teams was in Champ Select. And that's where Quad was calling for the Seraphine mid and they, you know, the new jungle and those types of things. And they would rather do it that way rather than
being silly in game.
You know, being silly in game and going for a lot more crazy things. But it was a very interesting discussion from both sides, because there's arguments for, well, maybe you should start playing more aggressively in your domestic league if you feel like you're that much better, because you're going to have to take more risky plays versus the top LCK teams and stuff like that. So there were a lot of layers. They hit on a lot of points in that discussion. I enjoyed all of them.
Yeah, it's a great episode. Definitely go check it out if you guys haven't watched it already. But it is interesting. I mean, I could talk about this stuff all day, because I do find the theory of it really, really interesting. But the last thing I guess I will say is that I just feel like perfect in a game that is as complicated as League of Legends almost never exists, which is why I think I would always be more on the side of not always remaking when something goes bad, because I just feel like it is too unrealistic to go into game and have everything top to bottom in your game plan go perfectly and no one makes a mistake. You know, it's just, there's just so many variables. There's so much imperfect information in League that I feel like you need to be comfortable playing from uncomfortable spots in a game like League, which is why I don't think you should just remake from like any mistake, because mistakes happen, right? And getting experience in those spots is really, really important, knowing exactly how you have to change that. And Jan even gave that example of playing against Lion, where they, you know, had this game, it was their first game against Lion, where they got 2v2 killed. You know, they made a mistake there, they overpushed when they should have based, and then they got killed. And then after that, they come back and they get 4-manned by, you know, TFL and Jarvan and everything. And it's like, well, you have to play that game now, right? And you have
Remake.
to, exactly, like you have to play the game. It happened. You're in it. So what are you going to do, right? And maybe the chances of winning it are incredibly low. You know, they did lose that game, but it's like, you want to give yourself the best chance, even if the best chance from that spot is 10%.
Yeah, definitely. Like you said, I think we could go on about it forever, because it's definitely, I don't think there's a right or wrong to it. It just kind of comes down to like what both teams agree to. Like everyone wants just the most efficient practice. So I don't know. I'm definitely on the side of you know, I like the games to be reasonable. I think that I guess the problem I have with remakes is that it kind of becomes a metagamey thing where it's like people know that they'll do something and be like, okay, you know, if this goes bad, then I'll remake. It's whatever. So then the games can kind of just deteriorate into kind of like nonsense stuff, or you know, it's like you would not do this on stage. And so I do think it's important that like there's stakes to what you're doing. So you don't just have people just trolling and remaking when it doesn't work out, or like, hey, my extremely risky play worked out and now I'm ahead and I don't want to remake anymore. Like, this is great. So it's tough. I've always found that just not remaking, just playing it out and just trying to be reasonable the whole time has been the best. But there are certainly games where it'll also just be like, well, we just got ace at level 1 and this game is bricked. There's nothing to be learned here.
Yeah, I feel like it helps a lot if the both coaching staffs talk ahead of time and they're like, all right, today for the first hour, we are going to practice, you know, level 1s, or we're going to practice, you know, up until 7 minutes. And we're going to try and do this sort of, you know, invade. And both teams kind of agree to, we're really intensely focusing on this early game thing. You know, it's, and we're going to like remake once we figure out there is some threshold for X person or team is far enough ahead that, you know, we've gained the data that we want, versus, all right, then the next couple hours, we're going to practice being able to play from behind. There's no remake. Like, whoever gets blasted is trying to figure out what to do when you get
Deal
blasted.
with it, buddy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool. There's also obviously this, I don't want to say drama, but there was like a lot of talk about the Lion comms from this last weekend with Inspired, you know, telling Dokla to shut up, and then Saint telling Inspired to shut up. And like, and then they talked about that on pros as well, which was a whole discussion. And Inspired basically said, we just use shut up as be quiet. And maybe some people see that as more aggressive, but like, he was basically saying that's just how they talk. And, you know, it wasn't that big of a deal in his mind. And, you know, Inspired is very opinionated, you know, and he is very straightforward. He'll tell you exactly what he thinks, which I do respect, because I'll see him in the studio and I'll be like, excited for the game day or whatever. And basically 100% people will be like, yeah, like, you know, whatever. If he doesn't care about the game, he's like, not particularly, you know, or just like, or like, oh, like anything, you know, interesting for the matchup against this guy or whatever. And he'll be like, no, I don't think about him at all, or, you know, like whatever. It's just like he'll just tell you what he's thinking, which I like, and it's brought him a ton of success, and it is super valuable, even if you don't necessarily 100% agree with like his philosophies. It is super valuable to have someone that has a clear opinion and thought process on everything that they do with League, from start to finish, from practice to review to stage games to drafting to how everyone should play his lanes. He's got an opinion on it all, and he's you know, backed by multiple MVPs and tons of titles and so much success. So he brings an incredible amount of value to teams by, you know, just having, this is the Inspired way, and if you do it this way, you're going to get wins.
It also, I think, definitely worth checking out Lion's content, because they put out more detailed comms than is released on broadcast even. And, I saw people reacting and they're like, oh my God, it's a hit job. They're trying to make Inspired look bad. But LYON themselves put out really extended comms, and APA mentioned this as well on pros. He was like, Cloud9 loves whenever there's a new release, we all gather around and watch LYON comms because they think it's hilarious how they talk to each other. And obviously lots of fans
they were dropping F-bombs and stuff.
Yeah, they're all of these things are very apparent. And we've also interviewed like Dokla and different members of the team at different times, and they've talked about it. And there's like varying levels of buy-in. And, Saint has said, it actually has helped him a lot to have someone talk, both him and the coaching staff, crediting like Rigby and stuff as well, I believe, about what I should be able to do to actually, win the game in different like macro scenarios and stuff like that, because everyone recognizes Saint has really good mechanics. But, whatever language they use to be able to convey, game concepts or, what you should do in certain scenarios is, can be up to the team. And Doko's like, yeah, I appreciate direct feedback type of stuff too.
And the direct feedback was shut up.
Yeah, and the direct feedback is shut up. And honestly, when I heard that one too, I was like, yeah, and from Inspired's point of view, you can tell he was like, this game is 100% guaranteed, because like when they had Baron, they were sieging, they had like 10,000 gold lead, and like they're so far ahead, and they're like, we don't have to fight them. But I also, Dokla is there, is like, yeah, if we just fight them, we're gonna win. And Inspired's like, no, calm down. He doesn't say this. He says, shut up. But he's kind of saying, like, be quiet.
Make it 100%, not 99.
He's saying, be quiet, calm down. We focus. This is our best chance to win. We know we have all of these overwhelming advantages, and we're going to do this to guarantee it.
That's the Kobe translator here, When he says shut up, he means, my dear friend Dokla, we would slightly reduce our chance of winning this game if we follow your recommended team fighting strategy.
Please calm down and focus up. Listen. Exactly. It's I don't know. So I thought it was really, really funny. And then too, it also validated. I love that we got the follow up on pros where they, Inspired was talking about. Yeah, it's kind of just terminology that we use. It's like calm, be quiet, or like hush, basically, because Saint told him to shut up too in the very same game. Like
that was game 2 when he did it.
Yeah,
the one that I'm thinking of at least. Where I thought Inspired's comms that
he was
game,
he
was kind of whiny sounding.
Crazy.
He was kind of sounding.
That
whiny.
was like what I imagine, like what solo queue voice chat would look like with a lot of players. There's like the people that I mute in game where like he was bringing up a Rift Herald play that happened like 15 minutes earlier or something.
Yeah,
and I was sitting there just being like, damn, like that's kind of crazy. I feel like hindsighting in the game like that is just an absolute vibe killer. There is no possible point to doing that. So I thought it was really funny that Saint just told him to shut up, because normally I'm like Team Inspired. I like the bluntness and just being direct and strongly opinionated, but like I thought he was being kind of whack that one, because that was not helpful what he was saying at all.
So LYON apparently also released like fuller comms of that on theirs, and Saint goes on to say like, shut up, let's make a play. Mm-hmm. So there is also a point to it where it's kind of like, okay, if that's the feedback, let's do something about it, type of thing. And Inspired actually did also address that on pros, because the tone and stuff was also brought up to him, and he said that they did feel they had a really big discussion, all the players, APA and them chimed in on it too, and Jan was like, yeah, there's some instances where in-game VOD review is good, where it's like, we need to adjust this for the next team fight. But obviously there is like a timeline, and there is like what is going to actually be useful in game for possibly adjusting for a possible win for a next team fight, or next part of the game, or something that should actually be reserved for out of game. And then he also mentioned there was some point where they felt like the game was totally over, and so they felt, hey, let's just start our VOD review now, type of answer as well. So it kind of, it's one of those situations where they're like, all right, let's start thinking about what we do for next.
I can always see it, but I remember when I was a pro, we had a rule where it was like, you are not allowed to talk about like what went wrong in the game during the game. You know what I mean? It was like, stay focused on like what is happening. We'll talk backwards later. You know, if there's something that is like useful for the next fight, like Jan's talking about, hey, yeah, change it. But otherwise, I think it can get.
Yeah.
Well, it was definitely a really fun weekend. I think this next one is going to be a banger too. So we're going to start talking about LCS. But before that, we are going to take a quick break and then we'll be right back.
Dude, this lobby is kind of comfy. It feels different.
If this is different, I like different. I'm staying right here.
Are you guys serious? We're about to get into game.
Emily, let us enjoy it.
You guys need to lock in. Maybe this'll help.
Oh no, not already.
Welcome back to the dive, driven by Kia. It's time to talk LCS. We had a lot of big matchups last week at the top of the table and at the bottom of the table. We can start with the Saturday matches. Shopify played against Sentinels.
Yeah, they did. I mean, how are you feeling? Because I feel like Sentinels. I feel like Sentinels are very threatening. They talked about this on Pros too, where it's like they really think, you know, either Sentinels or FlyQuest are going to be the ones to make the big moves to get into playoffs and get the 4th spot. Mm-hmm. But like, do you feel confident in their laning phase? You know, I guess that's my main question, because going versus Shopify. Not necessarily.
I do when Rahel plays Caitlyn.
the game plan to play around Caitlyn bottom lane, they definitely have that one on lock.
I mean, they have their picks.
That's on lock.
Like, I was kind of joking about it a little bit. Did you cast this one with me? I can't remember. But I was talking about like looking at their win rates of their champions, and they're like 100% win rate on Caitlyn, 100% win rate on Skarner, 100% win rate on Bard, and then the other 2 champions they hadn't played yet, the Cassio and the Cassante, right? But it's like, I feel like they have these specific champions now that they have been so successful on time and time again. Like the Hombox Skarner is looking real nasty. And when Rahel is on Caitlyn, they have been stomping every time as well. So I agree. There are definitely questions about the laning phases. Impact has been one of the weakest laning top laners in the league. But this week, it seems like either the coach cracked the whip and said you're on tanks, or he changed his perspective because they're getting close to playoffs, or it's just time to lock in to make sure you make playoffs. But we had been talking about the fact that he hadn't played a single game of Cassante, Sion, or Ornn this whole split leading up to it, which is bizarre because that's like what he's known for, and he's playing all kinds of stuff. And then this series, he plays Cassante and then Ornn. He team fought really well. Fudge couldn't really build any really big advantages against him. Like, he just did great, and I felt like this looked like the most solid Sentinels week I thought we had seen.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it could definitely be like a boredom thing. He's like, I don't want to play tanks every week. And then he looked at his team's score and he's like, all right, fine, I'll play tanks. Because I feel like you kind of see that in playoffs where players who will like, you know, nobody wants to play the same thing all the time. And I think for most pros, they can deal with it because, you know, it's your job. It's what you're there for. But there are some players that are just like, nah, I don't want to play the good stuff. Let me, like, give me just the weird thing. I don't think Impact's that kind of guy, but
the duo queue record's going too bad. You have to beg your friend to play the serious jam.
Yeah. I think everyone knows a player like that, but I don't think of Impact as that guy. So it is kind of funny that he hasn't been playing the tanks. I think in one of the post game matches, he was saying how his team just values having prio, which I think is probably a reason why he was doing it. Mm-hmm. But like you said, his lanes have not been going that great, all in all. So, yeah, maybe it is just better to put the tank in the bag and accept that maybe we're not going to get a lot of prio up top, but will be useful later.
I mean, if you just close your eyes and imagine the best possible strategy for this Sentinels team with this roster, you know, 9 times out of 10, it's going to be like Impact up there on a weak side tank so that you can put more jungle ganks and focus towards Rahel to make sure Rahel is going to have a lot of money to carry team fights later. And like also in Champ Select to start by building around tanky frontline, have Rahel on, you know, strong, team fight carry, DPS, and Darkwings on a control mage. So you're going to have, you know, 2 main carries. And for me personally, I think Huhi has actually been good on both Enchanters and Engage, but obviously is still better on a lot of like playmaking type.
That's why I think Bard is so
type
good
of
for
champions.
because it's kind of both.
Yeah, and he facilitates Hambach extremely well whenever he does get the Bard. He had the one this week was his Bard with Hambach's Skarner, but last week it was his Bard with Hambach's Trundle, and he even like they were losing the early game, and Huhi literally like saved their early lane phase by like leaving lane, going with the Trundle to like help him invade and go attack enemy jungler and stuff like that. And so I feel like this you can have just such a solid view of how Sentinels. It feels good to play the game and how they should play the game. It feels like a very standard, type of team.
Yeah.
Who he's really good shot caller. Also very good vibes from the comps listen-ins that we've had from this team too about, not giving up and them having faith in their, 5-on-5 team fights that they can try and draft towards makes a lot of sense. Hambach, I think, is the most like flexible as far as the roles. He could be another DPS threat like the Nefiri, or obviously loves Skarner, and Skarner gets banned against him a decent amount, so it can be another front line. So there's some wiggle room with Sentinels, but I feel like they are a very straightforward and very solid team. Meanwhile, I feel like Shopify is a very not solid team, and I don't know how you feel about those stocks, but I feel like the bottom 3 teams of the LCS.
I tried to sell my Shopify stocks and it wouldn't let me. The market was closed.
they already hit rock bottom.
Yeah.
I mean, Dignitas already hit rock bottom. Shopify is close to hitting rock bottom. They are. I feel like they're certainly plummeting. It just it does feel very difficult. Contracts can sometimes make some stuff happen, but you honestly start to get this feeling that it's futile.
Yeah, I feel like it's kind of like contracts and then Bvoy. In Bvoy, in a lot of their games where they're almost winning lately, it's been Bvoy kind of versus the world where he gets super fed. And I feel like that has been kind of the hope in some of them. But it is tough because I also feel like, when you're thinking, okay, AD carry is having some really strong performances, like maybe we can play towards Bvoy. Well, your support is playing really poorly. I feel like it has been a really tough split for Seos. I think Seos has really stood out in a bad way, unfortunately. And, he seems to be really struggling. Zinni has not really seemed to be able to kind of like get in his groove. We've seen some flashes of brilliance, but for the most part, he hasn't really been able to get it going. And Fudge is not playing, I think, nearly to the level that is kind of been expected of him, and he even talked about that when we interviewed him. So it has been tough for Shopify, but it feels like at this point, I mean, they still could make playoffs, but even if they make playoffs, I just can't imagine predicting them over any team that they could play, dropping down from the upper bracket, because any of the teams that could be a top 4, I feel like I would favor pretty heavily above them. So I think Shopify, there's more of a light at the end of the tunnel, I think, for sure, than there is for a team like Dignitas, but
well, yeah,
but
there's a wall at the end of that tunnel because they're out already.
Yeah, but it's even just like looking forward to the next split, right?
Yeah.
Like you could see, hey, if Zinni starts playing better and things start working a little bit more, Fudge gets back in form, but they're just not playing well. If
you feel like Dignitas is 100% chance of roster change, what percentage are you giving Shopify? How close to that are they? Because if you talk about hope. Okay, Revan had that quote where, Shopify coach Revan's like, as long as I'm here, no roster changes.
So because of that, it makes it tough. I mean, basically management has to be really unhappy to the point where it's like, if that's true, you're basically saying you're going to fire your coach and replace players, right? But the reality is I have heard that this is an expensive roster, right? And if you have a roster that has expensive contracts and they are 3-16 game score now on the year so far, like you bought a pretty expensive roster of players, you import Zinni, you feel like you have got this team that's really going to be competing at the top of the table, and you're 3-16, you're not getting what you thought you bought, right? So, is it at that level where management, owners, whoever are like, time to pull the plug and try something different? I don't know. I wouldn't give it 100%, but I would think it's getting up there. I would think like 60-70% chance that you're going to change something, because those results are just too bad.
Yeah, definitely. I don't have much faith really at all in this Shopify. Even like you said, if they make playoffs, because it's just weird. There's some teams that can do bad. I think Sentinel's record wasn't great, but they at least seem like a team that can win games. Whereas Shopify, to me, just even when things go well for them, it still just feels like there's this inevitability that they're going to lose in some way. I don't know why. It could be a lot of different things, but something about their idea of how to play and their execution of it is just wrong, I think, because they get into favorable situations more than you would expect for how much they win, but they just always find a way to throw it or just do the wrong thing. So yeah, I don't know if they need to change or they just need to figure out what exactly they're missing in their game plan, because it is bad. I think earlier we talked about how they had good early games a lot of the time, but then they just, would lose anyway. So not a good look for sure.
Yep. The next series that happened was the Disguise versus Dig one. Disguise, pretty good series for them. Obviously, it is versus Dignitas, so it was kind of like the expected bottom team. But I'm pretty sure my prediction, and I know a few people I talked to about this, were thinking that this was actually going to be a series that Dignitas would win. They ended up getting 2-0, and Surdy had a really good series coming in, right? And that was kind of the question of like, okay, Disguise, you lost your best player, Castle, he's gone, and you're bringing in Surdy, who I think people think pretty positively about, but he's had basically zero time to practice with the team. Surdy gave an interview though where he was saying the Scrims are going way better than he expected that they were going to go. Probably expecting that kind of that doomsday scenario where you come in, you haven't played with them, things aren't working, but said Scrims are going well. Sajed, I feel like, had his first good week in a long time. He has been really struggling, whereas when we thought back to lock-in, Sajed and Lions didn't do well in lane, but once it came time for team fights, Sajed was having some kind of pop-off moments. So I feel like this was a really promising week for Disguise. Kryra had some really good games, and it does give a little bit more hope for Disguise, and hope that maybe Surdy actually gets more of a permanent spot again in the LCS, which I think he's deserving of.
Yeah, I think we saw a lot of the main positives that had shown up at different points for DSG throughout the year for them, and they all seem to come together at the funniest time because they made a roster swap, and you're like, uh-oh, they lost Castle. He's been so good for them. That's like their one winning lane. What are they going to do now? And then Surdy fits right in perfectly. He's like winning lane. And then he also plays a Scion game. He like plays Rumble game and then plays Scion game, like the two ends of the spectrum. And both times he fits in with the team perfectly. Like his Rumble play where he has advantage the whole time and then he shoves out, he roams down for the dragon fight halfway, and then he goes back up as soon as they have it secured, and perfect timing, doesn't give up any minions even as Ornn was trying to push back to his tower. It's like these timing windows and these like coordination on objectives and even the roam timers that aren't just like, oh, team fights or random stuff. Seemed like he was fitting in really nicely with the team. And I loved the interview that we had with him before with, I think Raz was the one who did it. And Surdy was like, yeah, not a lot of people could do what I'm doing right now in Scrims, and I know that I'm better than the bottom 4 top laners for sure. And, he basically was talking about how, yeah, this is a good platform for me. I don't know if I'm going to stay on this team, but this is a good platform for me to make them want to keep me and show what I have to any other teams. And I just love that he was that confident. He was driven. He was, knew what he wanted. He's like, I wake up every day. I'm excited to go into work. This is what I feel like I meant to do. When he got the call, he was like, felt like his purpose was re-fulfilled. So I was like, wow, he knows what he wants. He's driven, having success in the scrims already and fitting in with the team. I thought that was just a good interview, because it's these things that you like kind of say when someone comes in and you're like, oh, this could be their chance or whatever. But he's like, yes, this is my chance and I'm going to do this. And then he performs.
Yeah, it's cool. Part of the, I think probably the same interview with Raz, he was also talking about how, like Raz was asking me, do you think this is a better meta for you? Because there had been a lot of discussion about that. It's like he was known as range top laner man, rank 1 solo queue, plays all this super lane dominant stuff. Like that was kind of his reputation, that he's mechanical, he's owns in lane, and then he comes into pro and it's lane swap meta, right? And it's like, well, go screw yourself. Like you basically can't do that at all. Anytime you counter pick top, they're going to swap away from you and you're going to be getting Toph. And now it is like range top meta and lane dominant counter picks. You can't swap away from it. Like you get a lot of isolated matchups in top lane. A lot of top laners have been talking to me about this, where they just feel like, yeah, it's no one goes top. Junglers don't go top unless it's like part of their jungle path and they get a free gank. You know, generally speaking, you don't have to worry about getting gank top at all unless it's like Nocturne or Pantheon who are just going to ult up there as part of their clear. So there's a lot of isolated 1v1s. So it does leverage some of the strengths that Surdy was supposed to have when he came in first time around. And so I think that's, you know, potentially really beneficial for him right now too.
Yeah. I also think the rest of the players on the team, okay, they're playing Dignitas, but the other players on the team also looked, were performing better. And I think Kryra has been looking very good. Again, like when Kryra or Griffin, you know, these younger NA talents that are coming up, when they're not playing versus Inspired and Blabber and stuff, they have looked very, very solid. And so saw some more really good games out of Kryra. His Xin game was really sick. I love abusing the Titanic Dusk and Dawn build. He was looking good. Call Me had a really good one too. His Akali got super fed. So we saw a lot, like I said, a lot of these things that have shown up and been bright spots for DSG at different times. Felt like they were falling more into place. Again, yeah, they beat the team that has no series wins. But
they beat them.
But
It's better than losing to
A
them.
win
way
is a win.
better.
And go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I like that they were the only team that picked Smolder because I don't know if it's just one of those pro player,
It's Giga OP.
yeah, you know, stick with what you know rather than try something that might be good. Smolder does kind of have a weak early game, so you're not going to have a lot of pryos, and I guess that's why people stay away from him, but no, this champion is just monstrously strong on this patch. Everything about the patch buffed him, like Deathfire touch is great on him. The interaction with Cleaver of just instant stacking it and keeping it stacked as long as you have like one dot out is crazy. And so I like to see that they picked it and it worked out. I feel like we'll see more people pick this champion just because he is so strong, but we'll see.
He's catching some nerfs, I think, though, right? And
they're putting a 0.2 second delay on the application of Black Cleaver.
some specific Smolder nerfs too, I thought.
Yep.
Yeah.
They're doing the we were joking about this beforehand, but the Riot special of nerfing champion and item type combination. I know Riot and the Balance team take those accusations very seriously, and they're very well aware.
And they're not from Kobe.
They're not from me.
Kobe's just relaying the accusations from the community.
Internally, it's funny because like rioters will use that same term themselves. They're like, do we nerf the item or the champion? Let's nerf the champion, but what if we nerf the item later? Like, oh, it's a Riot special. Like, so I don't think it's intended. So it can be tough to judge on some of that stuff, but. Yeah, I don't know. Smolder, he could probably weather a few nerfs with how he's been because it is just unreal. Because whenever there's a late game scaling carry who also builds like a tank, that's usually a pretty huge red flag. Usually that's like the trade-off. That's what AD carries give up. It's like, hey, you can do all the damage late game, but you're not supposed to be able to withstand, full mage combos while doing it. So Smolder's breaking a few rules and probably deserves some nerfs for that.
Fair. FlyQuest played C9. This was the one that I was kind of calling maybe FlyQuest would get that upset. And while I was watching this, I actually thought they were going to do it. They won the first game. Second game, I felt like they were in a position where they definitely could win. But this kind of like super shielder comp ended up eventually scaling and taking over that C9 had after a couple of bad fights from FlyQuest. I thought there was a pretty cool comp that C9 played with the Senna Seraphine bot lane plus Xin. Obviously, there's a lot of talk about how Xin is really enabled by Seraphine. Senna makes that even more strong. And this was one of those games where one team takes Seraphine, the other team takes Ashe, right? And kind of like the split up of that duo. And generally, I do like Ashe a lot more when it is divided like this. But I did think that the Senna worked out quite well, even though the Senna, kind of got blasted in this game, especially in the early stages. Sven got put way behind.
He did not look comfortable on the Senna. That did not look very well practiced. One thing I was noticing in that game is he just wasn't doing the Senna thing where you walk over to Raptors and take the souls from your jungler. He was missing a lot of souls in the mid game for that. And also just, like having a really rough lane. He was like feeding his brain out, like getting dove on the first clear like that. You have to be really misplaying your lane to get dove in that kind of situation. So yeah, not a great one for Sven, but they managed to win.
Their deathball comp, man.
Yeah, that was definitely a rough one from him. Thankfully, the third game was a very good one from him with the Corki game, and he got super fed. We even did a sideline interview with Dom after the draft as they were heading in, and he was like, "Yeah, Corki should be able to carry this. There's not going to be a lot to stop him. He even's going to be able to burn through this Mundo." And Sven got fed, and he was indeed able to melt them all. Have to say, it was against another Jyn, the notorious Jyn pick.
I was so confused. Wasn't FlyQuest memeing about picking Jyn themselves, and then they just picked Jyn and he's useless again? I don't know. I feel like usually when you're making fun of yourself for doing something, you don't just keep doing it and have it be bad.
But they don't agree with the memes.
Yeah. They're making fun of it because they're like, we're so confident in our Jyn picking. Like, yeah, everyone else is making fun of it, but like we know. So we're self-confident.
Yeah.
It's like, well, you make jokes about yourself because you're self-confident.
But then
But then you lose. And
you keep losing again. You're like, wait a second.
Is it actually me or no? It's everyone else.
Yeah. It's definitely funny. And I will say, Gakkos is not being the bad on tanks allegations. This Scion game had some criminal behavior. This Scion game was crazy. Like there was a few times where it's just like you can see his thought process. And it feels like he is just thinking of himself as like Ambessa and stuff always. And it's like, the AD carry mispositioned 1 foot forward. It's go time. And he just like, alting into the back line, flashing in, and then it's like, brother, you are Scion. Like you are a full tank Scion. You can do like a half channeled Q in an auto. Like you're not one-shotting him. And there was this play over by Baron in the river where they had like gotten out, and I can't remember if it was Griffin that came over and kind of saved him, but anyway, he had like retreated back, and then someone stepped up, and he just Scion ults forward into them, and it's like all of Cloud9 are there, and you look at the minimap, and none of his team are anywhere near him, and he's just ulting directly into the middle of the team, right by Baron, dies, and they get Baron for free off of that, and then it's like you come back from that, and then he's just like frontlining way too far forward, insta having to flash out, losing all his health for free. This man cannot play tanks, but he is a very good carry player. And despite that, they almost won this game, and it would have been cool to see them pull off that upset. But Cloud9 remains undefeated, playing well overall. And that is kind of like the kiss curse. I feel like of FlyQuest is that they obviously can beat anyone. They have that ability, but they are very inconsistent. I think because they sometimes are over aggressive and kind of like make these mistakes. And you hope that throughout the year that becomes more polished and they like can maintain the aggressiveness, but maybe be a little bit more selective of when they are taking the fights and stuff. Yeah. Because you can definitely see how this team can really cause problems when they're on it. But some of those plays, especially from the get-go side, were just like, what is happening here?
I know we've been referencing the pros episode a lot, but it's just because
it was a great pros episode.
It was just because, Inspired, APA, and Yon all gave a lot of really good insights. And one of the when Inspired was describing FlyQuest, you could tell that he was frustrated because he was like, they're the most dangerous of those like the teams that are outside of the top three,
the most annoying team to play against.
I think those were that's the exact phrase. And because he was like, they will fight stuff that you think they're giving, but then they come fight you on it anyway, and you should win. But because you were not prepared for that, and you thought they were giving and they should give, then you lose it. And so then it becomes a like good play for them. And they also they went further into discussing when he was playing with Masu, and Masu very frequently wanted to play extremely aggressively. When he was on FlyQuest with Busios as well, and I just thought that was quite cool because I really have liked the trajectory of Masu as this huge North American talent, and I want him, like you, to remain aggressive and still have that killer instinct while also being able to be a little bit more
a little bit more selective, more
thoughtful. More thoughtful of when they do it. More selective, maybe. Is a good term, and because the potential is for sure here with this team. As given the good respect of being like, they're the most volatile team. They could beat anyone or lose to anyone.
And I mean, I do agree with the mindset of playing aggressive and playing on the knife's edge is the only way to truly become like potentially a best player in the world type of thing, right? You Inspired's point of view, he was saying it's like, wanted them to play more passive or whatever on FlyQuest. He's like, we're the best team. Like, you shouldn't take risks. Like, we're gonna win, right? But I do agree with the idea, and I know Maso, I've heard him talk about this, where he's talking about it's like, look at the best AD carry players in the world, like, whoever you think is the best AD carry player, and think about the way that they are playing in these big moments. You think about like the best Gumayushi play you can remember, or the best, ruler plays that you can remember. It is not them just sitting max range in the back and auto attacking the front, right? It is them like finding a window of opportunity where they can actually like flash past the front line and kill the back liner, or the spells have just been spent. They can dash in on someone and like make some crazy play happen, right? And you cannot get to a point where you can capitalize on an opportunity like that without constantly playing that style. I do believe that is true. But of course, it is like way higher risk, which means you can fall flat on your face and completely cost your team the game, right? Like that is the cost of that style. But I think it is cool to see a player who is coming in and saying like, this is my goal, is to be able to play as good as the best players in the world. And to do that, this is the way I need to play. Whether or not you will be able to get to that status, right? Where you can perfectly choose when to be aggressive and execute excellently. Because if you can, then you're the UR ruler or whoever, right? But I think that's the only path to try to get there.
Does Ruler do that though? Because when you watch Jynxzi games, they're like a very controlled team. I think
Ruler's biggest moments, think about like, the Varus play, his Lucian plays, like I think he is riding that line.
Yeah, that's true. I just think, I don't know, to me, that sounds like the internal monologue of every Azir player who's like, I could sit back here and stab them front to back and definitely win the fight. Or you want to know how many montages there are for doing that? 0, I'm going in. And it's just like, dude, like Palafox the other week when he just kept doing that. I don't know. I feel like,
but
I get walking the line. I get being aggressive. That's great. But you definitely don't need to do that most of the time as AD carry.
But isn't that kind of like what I'm saying though, where it's like, you have to practice that style to be able to pull it off, but then you have to be selective of when to do it to be the best, right? It's like, I agree with you completely. You can't just do that every time. You'll lose way more games than you need to, right? Like if you're looking at the Xer's example, and you just every time, no matter what, you just fly in the back line and try to pull off a shuffle, it's going to get flashed and you're going to look stupid and you're going to die. But there are those fights that can only be won by pulling off that play. You think of like the infamous Faker catch and like all of these.
On Ruler.
On Ruler. Exactly. You think of these moments, there are games that can only be won by doing that. And then when you're in that position, if you have not practiced playing that style, I do not believe in your ability to pull that off in the big moment.
Yeah.
So, I think that you can play a more conservative style and have a higher win rate. I think that's absolutely true. And to your point, like of Ruler with Jynxzi has been running the LCK and dominating their opponents. So I think that they can play a more conservative style. I feel like we even saw that with Chovy, where Chovy in the past, I felt like played more aggressive to create more individual advantages. And sometimes I feel like, since their team has gotten so stacked, he takes more of a step back and plays a more conservative style because it's more consistent and a higher win rate. But I also believe in those players' ability to, like, in that moment when they need to play that style or when that opportunity arises, to be able to kind of like walk that line. So that's all I'm talking about, is like, if your goal is to truly be the best in the world or the best player or whatever, I feel like you have to be able to recognize those windows of opportunity and capitalize, even if it's not all the time.
Oh, definitely. I would just say the one caveat I would have is, if you want to be the best team in the world, you have to be able to like trust your teammates. Yeah. And if I have an AD carry that I'm playing for and getting ahead, and then they're routinely throwing games by doing some completely ridiculous like engage, I would be kind of upset. I would be like, what are you doing, man? Like, you didn't need to do that. And they're like, yeah, but I want to be the best player in the world. I'm like, bro, you're watching too much anime. Like, just stop. Just stop doing that.
Yeah. There's a line for sure.
Yeah, you're like, do that in our practice.
I'm like, oh, solo queue.
Yeah.
Like, doing solo queue, hell, scrim sometimes, but I don't know. It's I get the idea of pushing yourself, but I feel like people are, in my experience, people are more likely to just like take that way too far and just troll it.
That's why it is such an impressive feat when there is a player like that does it on the biggest stage and does it in clutch moments and reliably. Like Faker and Capsa mentioned a lot, those types of plays. That's why it is so impressive, because everyone, like, I love when my AD carry is like squeezing out little bits of damage and getting me little bits of priority, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's how I want my AD carry. And then they get caught one time and die one time, and I immediately flip from, oh, I love it when the AD carry was like that. I'm like, you idiot. Why are you doing that? You know. So it's definitely a fun line as well for both sides. The final series, gonna have to say, that was the match of the week. The TLAW versus LYON one that came after. Holy moly, that was a good one.
Yeah, it was a really, really exciting series. TL ended up losing to LYON, which meant that they weren't undefeated going into this final week for their match against C9, which was pretty crazy. But, Kobe, you called for this clip, so I don't know if you want to talk through it. But this Saint play, to me, at Baron was one of the highlight plays of the entire series and one of the best plays we've seen from Saint. Yeah,
it starts with them having Corki dead, and so there's a ton of pressure. So Team Liquid decide they're gonna go for this Baron, and LYON buys some time. So Inspired pops his ultimate early here on Nocturne, but makes them they stall off on Baron. It's like 3.4k health. They're waiting, and then Saint gets the perfect edge against the wall as Yon kind of walks up a little bit further. They still have the Nocturne ultimate on, so Yon can't see. But Saint just is able to E and then steals. Well, first he steals Sejuani ultimate. Then he's able to go next to the wall, E, and then ult flash to be able to lock him up. He gets a quadra kill out of it, and Inspired is able to smite the Baron.
Yeah.
And win I believe it was 50-50. Let me look back.
Oh, it was.
I think it was. And it was so impressive to me because
they're both staring at
a lot of people, when you're going up against Azael, just take the thought process of, well, Xayah will just press R if we try to engage on her. So you can't go for the Xayah, right? You just have to accept that and go for someone else. And I just loved how confident they were in their engages multiple times onto Yon, where they're saying, no, we're going to have to make him react to it. And when Nocturne has ulted, you have very limited vision around you, right? So utilizing the Nocturne ult, the lights have been turned off, and then over the wall comes a Silas who ER flashes on you point blank. That is so hard to react to, right? Whether you're a pro player or not, you don't have full vision of them, and then this just comes out of nowhere. And so I love the confidence to go for a play like that, and then the skill to execute on the play like that. It felt like it was a game changer. And in my recollection, they didn't 100-0 him, but they got him so low, and then he gets his ult off, and it's just immediately finished off. And even earlier in this game, I think they caught him without ulting another time. So I just love that confidence, right? Where I think a lot of teams would have shied away from that moment and just gone for a more guaranteed target, and then maybe Yon just cleans up the team fight.
Yeah, it works perfectly with our conversation of talking about big clutch moments.
Yeah.
And players, being confident to make these plays. Of course, in this scenario, they know they have to make the big play, right? So there's not really a big point in just saying, okay, never mind, let's all go home. And so you're kind of like, we are doing this, but then also to be able to execute. Core JJ has just dashed right in front of Yon. He's a little bit more towards the Nocturne, towards Inspired, because they know where he is. And it's even more impressive how Saint gets the ultimate right past him with the R flash. Is just a perfect CC chain, and then of course into the Nocturne Fear and stuff as well. But this series was so tense. This is the third game that we're talking about. And the gold was tied. It's 2-1 in Dragons. Team Liquid, like we said, started this Baron with Corki being dead. That's why they went over there to it. And they had small objective advantage, and so it's these big plays that are going to make the big difference in the series between our top teams. And it was a super hype one. We've got another clip for you because the super hype clips didn't stop there. Berserker got a pentakill as well to end it. And I don't know, maybe you could talk through this one, Meteos, you want to pull that up, or Isaac, if you want to talk through this one.
Meteos.
But he has the Hex Optics, and he absolutely spaces the hell out of Yon at the end. This item is super efficient, and I feel like super broken, especially when you see it used well, but also he uses his rockets super well.
Yeah.
And even I thought leading up to that, lots of his teammates make some very good plays too.
Yeah, this fight, this was such a cinematic finish for. Well, I thought this series in general delivered on so many ways. But yeah, this last fight, Saint had that heroic play earlier, but then in this last team fight, I thought Lion was going to lose it because Saint kind of just got instantly killed. I think Inspired got sent into his GA right away as well. And so it kind of looked like Lion had just thrown the game. I think in the post game, Saint was even saying like, "Oh, like we lost, my bad," kind of deal. But then it was just so back and forth. I think Dokla actually deserves a lot of credit for this game, and I was so happy to see Dokla do well in the series because it's like there was the castle news, and he got a win in the first game. And then, Castle comes in game 2, they lose. And then Dokla comes in with a Nivea, which I don't think he's played any competitive Nivea before. And he just had a really solid game on her. I think in that last fight, he made so much space just kind of going in there and buying the time.
The egg.
He bought the time that Berserker needed to actually get these kills rolling. Because once you get one kill with Hex Optics, it's like 100 range and 80 carry is pretty good. We saw at the end when it was kind of just Berserker versus Yon, that range was literally the difference. There's no way Corki beats Xayah in that kind of auto attack off, but you just outrange her, so you actually can win. So I thought it was just such a sick series, especially game 1 to me was one that stood out a lot because I feel like normally when you see a North American team pull out a comp like what Lion had,
that's what we were talking about when we were casting it.
Yeah, it's like, dude, this is just. I remember when Zix was my coach, if he drafts something like that, he's like, it's a pressure comp, guys, which basically just means like we cannot team fight. We have to just win through winning lanes and just like always having advantageous fights. But it's like if one thing goes wrong for you, you're probably just instantly losing the game because you can't win fights. But they just executed it really well. They 2v2 killed bottom. Dokla actually did end up getting solo killed by the Gragas, but Gragas is just OP. He got buffed. What can you do?
True.
But, I really like the way Dokla team fought as well. There was that one dragon fight where
their whole team spaced him like crazy in some of those fights.
He was so threatening. He was just sitting off into the side. He didn't even have vision of the bush that he was like playing around. And he was just making so much space for his team that I was very impressed that you could win with this kind of comp in the way that they did.
Yeah.
Because it's one thing to do this against a bottom tier team, but this is, Liquid. It's the Jose versus Inspired. This is like the MVP off. The winner of this series likely is going to be the front runner for MVP. And so just really impressive stuff by Lion to win like that. And then TL had a good comeback game 2 to tie it up. And then the fact that it came down to a literal smite fight between the two like MVP jungle candidates is just like chef's kiss of just like, wow, this is scripted.
Yeah,
for sure. It very much delivered on the hype. I was super happy watching this one.
Yeah, it was also cool because I don't know if you guys remember when we were talking about the patch with the Gragas buffs, right? And I was saying like, because it's W is the skill you go for last, maybe people could do tank and do more points in W. And Morgan actually did it this game, and they lost this game, but he did Emax into W with Q last. And
okay, so he actually put 3 points in W first, which was really weird.
Oh, okay.
He went 3 W, got his solo kill, and then started maxing E, which to me, it didn't make any sense. Because I feel like if you're going to put any points in W at all, you should just keep going because like the way the damage reduction numbers work is that each 4% is way more tanky than the previous one. So it was actually a little weird that he did that, but...
Oh, it's interesting. When I checked on his skill order, he just had 5 points E and then 3 points W. So I was like, oh, he did E first, then W.
It was weird. You would think that. I don't know why he did it the way he did. But I was kind of hoping that people try Q max and then W second on Gragas, because I actually talked to Impact like on the League client the other day, and I was asking him, I was like, hey, you gonna play Gragas? W got buffed, and he was just like, why would I play Gragas? That champ sucks. And so I was asking, about the leveling. He's like, maybe W max second's good. And then people were saying like, apparently Boss is doing that now as well on Gragas, and because you get really tanky.
Yeah.
Especially if you have AP. I don't even think you have to go tank Gragas, but just like regular AP Gragas, Q, and then W. To me, that seems like it could be really good. I haven't played it personally. I'm not a big Gragas top player, but if Boss is doing it, then I think it doesn't necessarily mean it's good. He plays a lot of stuff, but he is doing it.
I think the downside to me of the reason I thought it made more sense for a tank build, like what Morgan was doing, is that you want the extra damage of the E and Q ranks if you're going AP, right? If you're trying to actually one-shot someone, I feel like you're getting a lot more damage from those than you are from the points in W. The W is making you tankier, but like if I'm full AP and like I E flash R in and I don't kill them, then like I don't know that the extra tankiness of the W is kind of like as helpful for me in that moment. At least that was like my thought process. Maybe that is incorrect, and you can just kind of go AP and go QW. But I just thought it was cool to see that, because I do think players should be experimenting with it. The flat DR is crazy, and
I think it's
when you're tank, you're mostly there for the CC anyway, so it doesn't actually matter that you're losing damage on your Q or your E or whatever by not having as many points in it, I think.
Yeah. I really like the way that it scales scales
AP.
linearly with AP, and it's a flat damage reduction. And I feel like I keep explaining to people on co-stream and stuff, but it's like, going from like 50% DR to 60% is a lot tankier than going from 0 to 10 kind of deal.
Yep.
And so the fact that the number is bigger means like you want to max it, and then having AP makes it just so much value. Most things in the game don't scale like that because of how strong it is. So I think you can actually get away with being like extremely tanky on Gragas while having AP because of that. So
yeah, it's cool. I mean, it's definitely, it's just fun. I was happy to see that, regardless of maybe it is better just go AP, but I've messed around with the kind of like tanky style of it, and it does feel like crazy tanky. And you can be super annoying where you don't have to just like body slam flash. Oh, I spent everything, now I'm instantly dead, because you can get in there and you can be multiple body slams in a row on people because you're living a long time. So it was cool to see that. They also did LYON did a bit of a cook in the second game for top lane, where they brought out the Rise as a flex into the Rumble as the counter pick. It didn't really work out the way that they had kind of expected and inspired. I know you said was talking about this as well on pros, because everything comes back to pros this week.
He had it was a wealth of knowledge on the episode. Definitely a good one.
Yeah. But just the idea that like maybe this, he didn't know how much practice Castle had on this, Inspired was saying. So maybe it would have been better, better draft or better pick or whatever for Dokla. But I do like that LYON is experimenting with that kind of stuff too, because I think conceptually it makes a lot of sense. And I know, having talked with a number of top laners, they just feel like Rumble should be getting punished more than he is, because Rumble is obviously getting blinded a ton, and then people are kind of just like accepting, well, he picked Rumble, time for me to lose, and then they kind of just like pick a tank that isn't going to like get chain killed or anything, but is going to go down gold. And that has become kind of like the accepted philosophy of like, I'm going to play Ornn into it or Sion into it or Galio or whatever, and just kind of lose, but like not die. But a lot of top laners I've talked to are of the opinion that there are a lot of matchups such as Rise and other AP tops that like can actually just beat it. And so it'll be interesting to see if that evolution does come in, because then it actually changes Rumble's ability to just be blinded. And if Rumble can't be blinded, then hey, maybe Rumble's getting pushed down the tier list a little bit. So it'll be interesting to see if that kind of stuff comes out in playoffs, where that can be really big in a best of 5.
Yeah, I mean, when we get best of 5 full fearless super endgame drafts, it's always super fun. Especially, I'm curious because of how LYON did use both top laners immediately after signing them.
Yeah,
they're very willing to pull some draft differentiation stuff. Maybe oops, we practiced the Rise for Dokla, and then you had the other top laner in at the time, and you still drafted it. But there's lots of creative stuff that you can do when you do have multiple players and options and stuff for draft, and maybe they they can make use of it later.
It was really funny because I felt like the Rise game made way more sense for Dokla, and the Jace game made way more sense for Castle. So I was like, we like got confused on who's playing
just
here.
Signed both of them, okay?
I feel like when you think about Jace, you think about you need to have a nasty laning phase and build a big lead, and I feel like that's more what Castle should do. And I feel like the Rise thing was more like cerebral counterpick, cool like thing for Dokla. So we'll see. Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting. I thought the 6-man thing was a fraud, but maybe it isn't. Maybe it's real.
We'll see.
So it'll be cool. This week we have a bunch more important matchups. Of course, it is our last week of the regular season. The battle for first is on. TL is playing C9, which if C9 wins, they will be undefeated and they will claim first guaranteed. I think this one's going to be really, really exciting. I feel like you kind of have to favor C9. I mean, they have been I think looking really good. And
I don't know. Do you have to? I feel a little nervous favoring them.
They just about lost to FlyQuest. I feel like they maybe even should have lost to FlyQuest.
FlyQuest is good though.
I mean, they're not bad.
So is TL.
Yeah,
they're not bad. I don't think they're quite top tier. They're solid. I
It's
think
interesting because
they
all the pros put FlyQuest on the same tier as the other teams.
Interesting.
As they say, it's not a top 3, it's a top 4. But no, I mean on stage for sure, I agree.
Yeah, I guess it's just the consistency. Because I think FlyQuest can be really good, but they also can be really sus with some things, which I think obviously just comes from being somewhat newer of a team and the players having less experience, but definitely can be really good. So I think the fact that C9, like they've won all their games, but not games with series, but like it doesn't really feel like it when you watch them play. They look shaky. But for a sole first place undefeated team, they don't look like it at all.
Do you not think though that that's more true of TL's solo laners? Because I feel like TL's solo laners have been more shaky than the C9 members. Because that's kind of my thing, is that it's like TL is a very good team. They could obviously win the series. Jose has been far beyond what I expected from him this split, I think. But the solo laners have both been below my expectations.
Yeah, I think TL has also got their faults, but I don't know. I think this one's super tough to call.
Yeah, I can see either team winning.
I don't know, man. Like to me, TL is just like, at some point I feel like Quid is going to kind of like wake up and do the stuff that we've seen he knows how to do, and then they're just going to look crazy. But
I
feels
agree,
like he's been
when?
kind of dormant this season. He's just kind of there.
That's kind of my thing, is like I keep thinking every week, no, it's Quid. It's Quid. Like he's going to do it, right? But like I feel like he hasn't. Like his Yone game was good, but I don't know.
Yeah, I think that if Quid can play well, then APA will have a hard time. But if Quid's just kind of like there, then APA might run the map and make it unplayable for TL, because I would expect TL's bot lane to win pretty hard. Jungle, I would favor Blabber. In top, probably slight edge to Thanatos, but it could come down to drafts. So I'm not sure. To me, it's mid, but I guess C9 probably makes more sense to go for overall, but I think Sven has just had some like really, really sketchy performances this split, and Yon has looked really good. So I think that to me is kind of why I could see TL win.
Yeah, I was going to bring up the bottom lane because I feel like it could have a really big impact in this one. So I could definitely see either team taking it. I don't think there's a super heavy either way. No, obviously, there's been pretty big variance for both of these teams within their good games or within their poor games. And so, I mean, this week of practice is going to be incredibly important, but TL keeps saying that they want to play more LPL style and more aggro.
Their games are slow. They are liars.
Yeah, they keep saying it.
They are not showing it.
And then they keep getting into these slobber knockers that are going wild. But we also did see that, like, you could see the inklings of why they would say that at the beginning, right? When you did have some of these like Quid and Jose early mid jungle, like invading the enemy jungle and pulling off these 2v2s and making some big plays. But then there always seemed to be something comes loose in the mid game, I feel like, for TL. And once one thing, like somebody gets caught or somebody makes a misplay and you lose a piece on the map, basically, if League is like, you're talking about pressure earlier and wanted to like keep up, your pressure on the map, and then you want to cycle your recall timing so that you're able to keep it up. I feel like when TL lose one piece, everything collapses, and like somebody else is going to make a mistake, and then somebody else, and their whole like game plan can fall apart, and then they have to like pull it back in some of these crazy late game scenarios. But Cloud9 have also had some really rough, like dragon setups and fights for themselves too. So while both these teams, I feel, are deserving of their spots up here within the top echelon of LCS, and both of them are strong, for both of them, you can point to the weakness and say, well, that's why they're going to lose, right?
We talked about this on one of the pre-shows. We were doing kind of like an All-Pro segment where we basically did like a draft for All-Pro. There was 3 of us. And at first we were just going to present our first team All-Pro teams, but we were all very similar. So instead we did kind of a draft to get like, a first, second, third type team, like a combination. But to me, when I was thinking through All-Pro, I found it interesting that you were saying Thanatos is maybe a slight edge over Morgan, because I actually think it is the biggest gap between first and second of any role in our league right now. Maybe AD carry, maybe Berserker is an argument because I think Berserker has been really, really good, but Yon these last couple weeks has been pretty amazing too. So I think that has closed the gap. But earlier in the season, I was expecting it to be way more competitive at the top, but I feel like Thanatos is like a run away. Like I just can't imagine a world in which he is not a nearly unanimous first team All-Pro. Because while Morgan can be very strong, I feel like Morgan has way more game-losing mistakes and like mess-ups in team fights, where I think Thanatos has had both a significantly better laning phase and has been much more consistent. And my criticism of Thanatos when he had first come over was, yeah, he's a great laner, but like he's never synced with his team. Like his TPs are terrible. He'll make team fight mistakes. I feel like this guy is just kind of on point with every aspect of the game, where you can find top laners that are like amazing at one part or the other, but I don't think there's any other top laners that are amazing at both, right? Like Castle has an incredible lane, but hasn't shown any real team fighting yet. Yeah, he was on DSG, so who knows? Maybe he can do that on Lion. But to me, Thanatos is like a pretty significant advantage for Cloud9, and that's partially why I do favor them.
Yeah, I mean the stats do align with that. Morgan's maybe not. I don't know. I feel like he's had some really good games, but he has had a lot of like you said, mistakes.
Yeah.
And like some mess ups. And I guess, I didn't think about it, but Thanatos has been like pretty solid this whole split.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me more like Morgan reminds me more of like Thanatos when he had first come, right? Where like he's like looking really, really, really good, but then he has like this like fall on your flat face moment occasionally. I'm not saying he's bad by any means. I think he's gonna be all pro. He's great. But I do think that's a pretty big edge. So I'm gonna go C9 2-1. I think they get the undefeated season.
All right.
I mean, regular season.
The season is regular. It's not playoffs.
It's regular season. They hold it together. Honestly, I'm really feeling the TL. I'm feeling the TL too.
Seems like you guys are both on TL side.
I think
I'm actually C9 side.
Oh, okay.
I was just saying C9 doesn't to me feel unbeatable, but I don't know if TL is going to be the one to beat him. I mean, I guess technically they would be unbeatable for the regular season, but
Yep.
I just think it's not like a heavy favorite. I would say like C9 2-1.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's a lot of question marks to me. I think that the draft could actually affect it a lot because I think some of these top teams just like aren't playing Skarner for some reason. Like we haven't really seen Inspired or Blabber on it. Smolder's a huge question mark. I feel like if one team just drafts Smolder and gets their LP, that could be a big deal. Or maybe one team plays Smolder and just gets absolutely destroyed in lane and they lose at 20 minutes with it. So I think there is kind of like a shakeup in the picks that are coming in a little bit. So yeah, I think that could affect it too.
I think this series, Jan's going to show why they rebuilt the TL roster around him and Core JJ.
Okay. That'll be cool. This is obviously a very important one. If C9 wins, they get first. If they lose, it's going to go to tiebreakers, and that gets pretty complicated. So we'll see what happens there. The next series is going to be Shopify versus DSG, which is another really important one for playoffs. Both these teams still can potentially make playoffs here, and obviously it's your season on the line, right? And making playoffs versus not, I think, can really dictate a lot of people's view of like, was this a complete failure or not?
I'm going DSG, man. I'm going DSG all the way. I feel like they've got the momentum. They got Surdy in, and he has fit in seamlessly into this team. And sometimes you get like a honeymoon period with you get a little switch up like that. He's obviously feeling individually very confident, not just from their stage game, but also from their scrims. I think that we did see the really good upsides of both Kryra and Call Me. As well as Sajed. So I feel like the trend for Shopify has been down and the trend for DSG has been up. Is always worth caveating. Of course,
against Dignitas.
DSG just played versus Dig. And so, that can definitely be a morale boost sometimes, I guess. But I think it's actually predicated on like real things and real successes for this team. So I think they have a better chance. It's not gonna be, I wouldn't say blowout or anything. Shopify definitely can have some explosive games. They've shown some games this year where they had good, like Zinni's Annie game. They had good synergy with Zinni. He was making really good engages, no hesitation and stuff like that. So there have been some moments for them, but I'm feeling the DSG side. I will say 2-1.
2-1 DSG?
Yeah.
I'll say 2-0 DSG. I don't have any faith in Shopify.
That's how I feel, honestly.
Yeah.
I think it's 2-0. Sentinels versus Dig. This one, Sentinels obviously trying to stay in the top 4. Top 4 teams start upper bracket. If you're 5th or 6th, you make playoffs still. But your lower brackets, you have one less life.
Sentinels 2-0.
Yes. They are playing Dignitas.
May I submit my vote?
You can.
Yeah, I think Dignitas. If their vibes were bad,
Dude, he
before,
wants to quit already.
unless it's one of those things
2-0
where
Sentinels
it's like,
all around.
sometimes you get so tilted, it comes full circle, and they just don't care at all, and maybe they just have like the series of a lifetime.
Yeah.
It could happen, but probably not. I'll go Sentinels 2-0.
So Fly, Lion, of course, FlyQuest trying to stay in the top 4, to not get knocked out of that by Sentinels potentially. And Lion, because they beat TL, they have a shot to get first. It could get really crazy if TL beats C9 and Lion beats Fly. Then you have, this 3-way tie that's going to go to all kinds of different tiebreakers. But I do definitely still favor Lion as much as I think Fly is a strong team. I do think that they have the ability to upset top teams. Like I predict them against C9 last week. Obviously, it didn't work out. But I feel like Lion is so controlled, and it just feels like Inspired is really good against that sort of kind of like more, I don't know what you want to call it, unpredictable kind of style that FlyQuest is going to bring out because he is so controlled. He has such a clear game plan. He's expecting it.
He did say they're the scariest, though,
It's
of
true.
those teams to upset them.
Yeah,
They're on his mind.
I think Fly will win a game, and it's obviously possible that Fly could get the upset, but I definitely think I'm still favoring Lion, even though Fly has shown a lot of improvements. I mean, Griffin did not get destroyed by Blabber like he had in the previous series. And, when you think back to Lock-In, he got rammed by Blabber, rammed by Inspired. And I think, we got to see some of those improvements against Blabber, and I think we'll get to see some of those improvements here against Lion. So I think it's going to be a competitive series, but I still favor Lion.
Yeah, I would go Lion here. I'll say 2-0. Could be 2-1, but I don't know. I think Lion beats them more often than not, and I don't know.
Berserker is just playing insane right now. Saint is playing really well right now, at least his mechanics. So he did some like overstay plays. I think we went over a couple of them as far as like staying after for an extra wave. Inspired was talking about him greeting for more turret plates, and then he's like, yeah, and then what do I do? We just won this lane, and he greets for a plate and extra wave. But you can't argue with the mechanics. Berserker and Saint mechanics are top tier. Inspired is for sure top tier shot calling, as well as mechanics, kind of the package that has earned him a lot of MVP votes. So yeah, I got to go Lion also, but I like that FlyQuest, aggression. I think they do get a game. I'll go the 2-1, super exciting. And we're going to have another banger weekend.
Yep, it should be a lot of fun. Remember, tickets are live for all viewers for finals. It's going to be at ASU Mullet Arena, June 13th and 14th. So it is coming up. 2 days of high-stakes competition. The top 3 teams are going to be battling for the spring title and a chance to represent the LCS at MSI. So we're hoping to see you all there. Grab your tickets right away. But we also have a fat episode because the patch just came out. And
we still have patch. Oh,
and
no.
There's a lot
Dude, we're done. It's an hour and 40 minutes long. Oh my God.
The patch is out. There's lots of changes, including some pretty.
We're gonna hit a 10-minute patch here real quick.
There's a lot of debate about some of these changes, including the minion changes. That is something that I think it's funny. Like I've known about how this works with like minion aggro. If you hit the minions, you get put in the minion aggro list, and it can kind of essentially change how minions target. But I see so many people tweeting about like, oh yeah, this is gonna screw up all my lanes, and I'm like, I've never seen someone do this tricks against me when I'm playing. Even I've seen pros tweeting out no one was doing these tricks in pro, until just recently and so on. So I feel like it is super overstated how many players it will affect. But I also see the other side of it where it's like, if this is something that you have that knowledge of and you feel like, you are getting an advantage in lane and you have worked at all these little details to try to improve your game, that it feels bad to see that stuff taken out of the game. And basically, the most obvious way I have seen it used is where you walk up and you essentially one auto one of the range creeps, like the middle range creep, and it puts you in the target list, and then you step back, and basically they rechange what they are hitting. They stop hitting the one melee, and they basically all will you can make them all focus fire the first melee minion. So essentially, it will just like push
what you have to make them drop back down. So the priority list is that the minions are going to be above. So basically, you have to acquire it, and then let the minion get it back because the champion is right there.
And then they all will reacquire a new minion and focus fire it. And so I've seen this trick. I've tried to use it some myself to varied success. You know, sometimes it works. Sometimes other people are there to contest it, and you can't walk up anyway. Because a lot of the matchups that I see people use it most in is, where you have a losing lane and you want it to kind of come to you and maybe try to, focus fire a minion down. If someone's like guarding jungle or doing an invade or doing something like that, you can kind of walk up uncontested in a bad matchup and make the wave come to you. But I can see both sides, right? Because it's like for almost every player in the game, the stuff like this they don't understand. It's just confusing, and this kind of stuff, sometimes you'll be like, why did the minions just randomly change target and like they stopped hitting something I was about to last hit, or they changed target and like killed off my cannon or did something weird, whatever. These are kind of the rules behind the scenes that are sometimes accounting for that, and very few people are taking advantage of it. So I can see Riot's POV is like, hey, we are making this change to improve the experience for the majority of players. But I can also see if you are a very, 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 very top level player and you're using this to your benefit, it sucks that it's gone.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the change. Obviously, I think the people that are going to notice it are like the Chovies of the world. Probably very few people, but I do imagine the people who've like mastered how this works are going to be kind of annoyed, since in a way it's like you're taking away their forbidden knowledge that they're like getting advantages to other people with. But I don't know. I think definitely like it's better to err on the side of intuitive gameplay, and because most people are just like, what are these minions doing? Like, why are they switching targets? Like you said, why are they like stealing my cannon? All this stuff. So I'm a fan. I think it'll be good, and then we'll see. Maybe it'll change lanes in a drastic way early game, but I doubt it.
All right, I'm gonna rapid fire some takeaways on the patch then, because actually there's a lot of good stuff in this one. We already mentioned the Cyclo Sword nerfs as well as Nefiri, so they're doing the champion hit on Nefiri and the cost increase, 100 more gold for the Cyclo Sword. They're also nerfing the Deathfire Touch, and Nefiri mid basically used all these things. So you could get your poke damage. And so honestly though, I'm for it. I think that Nefiri itself was quite strong for a while. We'll see when you hit, a rune and a item and a champion, things can kind of go crazy. Zed is also in there. Zed is amazing. Yeah. Cyclo Sword user. Zed is also getting hit. But personally, I think that those are both okay. The Anivia one is pro facing, and it's funny because we're just talking so much about Dokla using his body on Anivia to tank and create so much space in these fights. And so they're like, you know what? Take that armor down a little bit on Anivia. She's been oppressive as a top laner. Armor helps a lot with a lot of top lane matchups. So I like that one too. How nervous are you, Meteos, about the Quinn jungle angle? Because they're giving her she's really bad right now as a jungle. If they make it to where she is a good jungler, her kit and the mobility of that kit and the ability to like make plays.
How are you supposed to avoid a lane gank from this champion?
Like that, it seems insane if they make it a good jungle.
Ghostblade Quinn is just going 1,000 miles an hour down my lane. How am I supposed to ward that?
Yeah, I don't think
after you die, you're back in base. You can buy some wards then, buddy. And then I don't know, suicide run them into the lane.
Yeah, I'm. I guess because I jungle, I'm not that worried about it. But if I was a laner, I would definitely not want to play against Quinn jungle for those reasons, because it's like, okay, she just ran up to me, almost like Nunu, but at least Nunu has to commit to his snowball, and he can't just like Quinn could just genuinely be sitting there in the lane for 20 seconds straight, and as soon as you opt into it, like a fight or overstep for a second, she's just there. So I think it could be a little risky, but I don't know. It was pretty bad before, so I don't think the changes are necessarily going to make it like overpowered or anything like that, but we'll see.
The utility on her kit too with the big vision reveal is also super, super strong for jungle. So there's a lot of stuff in the kit that if they pump up the levers too much, I could definitely see
could get annoying.
I could see myself whining about this in the future.
Yep.
I'm gonna wait until I see it actually be OP.
Not going to pre-wine.
Yeah, I'm not gonna kind of going.
But you're prepping your arguments.
Yeah, just so you know, it's coming.
Yeah, Kobe's coming for you. A couple of changes here that I think are pretty big. Gladys Greaves, I think honestly we're already trashed for pro in most circumstances. A lot of times people are buying it and we get to the game deciding team fight and they have 1 stack or 0 stacks. And this item is not that good unless you have a bunch. And now it is the same total amount of Omnivamp that you can get, but you need 10 takedowns instead of 6 to be able to reach that same level. And it costs 50 gold more. So I feel like these are super dead in most situations for pro. I just don't think pro is active enough to justify boots that take 10 takedowns to be able to actually stack up and get that effectiveness from. I think
could see a wrinkle where some mid laners, if you want to, because the upgraded version still has the good damage boost on high health and the shield effectiveness for low health. So maybe you could fit it in there, but generally I think I agree.
Yeah. I think situationally it can still make sense. I think the starting items changes are pretty interesting. Doran's Helm getting 30 health, and then Doran's Bow getting 2 AD. So I feel like these could get a lot more popular. And I know I was seeing some math on Doran's Helm where it's just kind of supposed to be like straight up better than Doran's Shield after I think it's like level 4 or 5 already, and then now it's getting 30 more base health. So I feel like a lot more people might be moving kind of straight towards Doran's Helm starts. And I've been kind of experimenting with it in some like pokey matchups when I'm playing top and just kind of seeing how it feels. And honestly, it feels pretty good already, I feel like, but it is hard to tell. Like unless you rerun a matchup with the exact same item against, over and over, it's really hard to tell the difference, but I already felt like it is feeling pretty decent. So this is probably going to be a pretty nice buff.
Yeah, I am personally on the side of like, I think Doran's Helm's already pretty good, and I think this will really push it. So I would expect people to start using it more. And it's, like you said, I think it's just something where you really feel Doran's Shield's amount of healing, where you might not feel the tankiness of Doran's Helm, but like when you play against it, recently I had like a game where I was Scion against Renekton, and I went for the Helm instead of the Shield, and it was like his all-in just did way less damage. So I think it'll definitely get bought more.
Yeah, I mean, when you have this and then you get some like early armor item, like if you're playing against like a Jace or like you're saying like a Renekton or something, you're on like a Warden's Mail and that, and it's just like you feel really tanky really fast, or even something that's like cloth armor or two, and that can feel pretty tanky. So I think it's going to get popular. The Doran's Bow, I mean, is definitely less popular, but the champions it was good on, it already felt good on. Like a lot of people were just using this and then going double adaptive force, right? Instead of taking an attack speed rune for champions like Yone and Yasuo, and there's a number of different examples where it's pretty decent. But the 2 extra AD I think is not insignificant. So I think for champions where it's already good, it's going to be a really nice starting item.
I mean, yeah, my first thought of seeing buffs like this, the starting items, I might actually grab one on a jungle if I am like early game jungle and I want to snowball. Meteos is like, you are crazy.
I mean, you can't unless you don't buy a jungle pet.
Oh, you're trolling. Yeah, I'm trolling. You're right.
I was like, are you not going to jungle at all?
I just remember because
it doesn't even let you do it.
Yeah,
you have to buy.
I used to do it on volley.
Doran's Blade and stuff.
I used to do Blade on Volley Bear.
Yeah,
for the
Omnivamp?
What's it called? No, the rune where you get bonuses for Jack of all trades. I used to do it on there. But you're right.
Took away our fun.
You're right. You can't even do that anymore.
Yeah, it was hilarious because that was when they buffed Doran's Blade and stuff to give laners an edge over junglers, and then junglers were hey, that thing looks pretty good. I'm going to buy it too. And then they kind of had the reverse effect. So no fun allowed. No Doran item for junglers, unfortunately.
Yeah, there's a lot of other changes. I mean, that are some various buffs. I feel like those are probably the biggest ones. So it'll be interesting. Like Lich Bane getting some buffs as well. I feel like Lich Bane is a pretty underbought item. When I think about people who buy it much, I see like Nidalee go it. I see Aries sometimes with like kind of like the alt weaving autos build go it. But like, there's not a lot of champions that go it. Even champions like Victor that used to be getting Lich Bane all the time back in the day, I feel like you don't really see it a lot. So it makes sense that it's getting some buffs, and maybe we'll see a little bit more play.
Yeah, some of the champs like Fizz and Echo as well went over to Dusk and Dawn instead. So yeah, it could use some love, and maybe they'll switch back to it because Dusk and Dawn has been getting pushed more toward the like bruisery side. Yeah, I do like that they're more separated. So distinct items. All right, feels pretty good. Well, the big one is Lee Sin as well. He's getting a change that was talked about of like I think months ago at this point.
We talked about this last week, I think. Yeah,
and he can ward jump now to or like he'll have the same cooldown on his W no matter what he jumps to. So that could be kind of crazy in lane.
And you get the shield jumping to a minion or warrior.
Yeah. And he did get some compensation nerfs. He got a little bit. His W will actually be a long cooldown if he casts it on a champion, because it's going from half, which would be 6. Now it's just always 7. And then E damage ratio is down as well.
Yeah,
and then he's getting a fun little flavor thing where if he ults somebody and it kills them, their body will still fly into other champions, which will help for like the one-shot assassin Lee Sin, which is like, it's not super real, but it'll still be fun.
There will be cool highlights from that. But yeah, the safeguard change is really big. I know we touched on that last week a little bit, but definitely could see that making lane Lee Sin have a bit of a return, which is always really fun. And I just think Lee Sin is just a fun champion to watch. So I never mind when they kind of buff it back into the meta. The only person really playing it in LCS right now is Jose. So it'll be cool if it makes a bit of a return. But I think that is going to do it for this episode of The Dive, which was a real doozy, a fun one. And I'm excited for the last week of regular season here for the LCS. And then it's going to be playoffs time. It's going to be finals time. It's going to be MSI time. It's all coming up on us. And that is going to wrap it up for us here on The Dive, driven by Kia. Be sure to subscribe to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube so you don't miss an episode of The Dive. Also, leave a comment. Hey, if you're a new player that's checking us out and you got some questions about the game, we got some answers, so leave your questions. LCS returns this Saturday, May 16th at 1 p.m. Pacific as Team Liquid Alienware takes on C9. That's going to be a banger. See you there.